everybody, welcome to Rachel's Reviews, and today we are talking about our blind spot pick for the month of April, and we're talking about The Good, Bad, and the Ugly from 1966, and this is actually the third in the what do they call it? The spaghetti western trilogy, the Fistful
Yeah.
third in the Dollars trilogy was what it's officially called, the Dollars trilogy.
Yeah.
And I've seen two out of the three now. A Fistful of Dollars.
There you go.
I've seen A Fistful of Dollars, and I've seen now The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
There you go.
Of course, this stars Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach and Lee Van Cleef. It's kind of a three-person film,
Mm.
and directed by Sergio Leone. And I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the Italian writers, but congratulations, way to go. It's and a bounty hunting scam joins two men in an uneasy alliance against a third in a race to find a fortune in gold buried in a remote cemetery. So
Yeah.
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 So we were talking off air. So this movie is a very long movie. It's 3 hours long, and I don't think that I realized that when I picked it. That's a long.
Like
It's a long
it's
movie.
long. It's long.
Yeah.
Okay, it's long. So normally like I sat through The Irishman like 9 times, okay? And that
Yeah.
thing is it's 3.5
Oh my
hours.
gosh, 9 times.
Not I listen, I love that movie. It's a comfort. Look, it's right there. So like I love it. Um but yeah,
Yeah.
like I could sit through The Irishman another 5 times. There's no way I could sit through The Good, Bad, the Ugly another five
Well, I
times.
mean, a
Like
fistful of dollars, which again I watched last year, was under 2 hours. So I just really did not even think about it.
it
And
won't
so
dawn on you, yeah.
yeah, so I definitely think A Fistful of Dollars is the stronger of the two films
Nice.
for sure. And so
I
we
mean,
should
this
have thought
is,
of doing this last year.
I know we should have done this first because this is the first time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not big on Clint Eastwood. And like,
Uh-huh.
even after, like, this is like one of my first Clint Eastwood films that I've
Yeah.
watched. And like, I know that people are going to be like,
Yeah.
what? You haven't seen a Clint Eastwood? I'm like, I haven't. And then after watching this one, I literally wrote on my letterbox, I just still don't understand the hype over him. I don't
Yeah.
get it. Um, because it was like there wasn't really any acting in this film either. Like there wasn't that much dialogue
Uh-huh.
that I found for 3 hours. I didn't think it was dialogue heavy, but I guess like that's the beauty of Sergio
Yeah.
Leone. It's more of like a feeling and just having these characters interact more viscerally than
Yeah.
anything. Than actually having conversations because the story is simple, but it still stretches for three
This
hours.
is one of those movies that's really hard to give a rating for as a critic, because I think if you like this kind of thing, it's kind of like Dune was that way for me. It's like if you like that kind of thing, then you'll like it. I don't like that
Yeah,
kind of thing, like, and
exactly.
it's not really fair of me to criticize something for being what it is. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
that's
saying? Like
entirely fair.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a slow moving like Western
Yeah.
character piece. But I think that if you compare it, not that I'm some expert on Westerns, but I definitely don't think it's as good as Fistful of Dollars. And I
Mm,
definitely don't think it's as good as The Magnificent Seven, which is
yeah.
very similar in feel. I
Yeah.
don't know when those were, but this it's not as good as The Searchers. I mean, I'm not like a total greenie when it comes to Westerns. So
Hmm.
I mean, I certainly think the Liberty Valance movie. I can think no. I mean, I don't know. I've seen some westerns,
Yeah.
and I don't think the problem is that the movie is very repetitive. It's just basically like
Yeah.
you've got our three characters, and then the three characters come into contact with somebody who has a clue about their treasure, right? And so then they kind of interrogate, beat up, whatever the person, and then they get another clue, and then they get another person who, and I think where it is strongest is in the kind of in more the atmosphere and tone
Hmm.
of the movie, the way that Leon uses these long shots that are beautiful, and just
So
like
good.
how brutal and violent it is. I think
Hmm.
that those things kind of do stand out, and
Oh, yeah.
kind of make it compelling in spots at least.
Oh, absolutely. I think the technical aspects of this film, like the editing, the cinematography, the direction, all of that, the score, we have to mention
Hmm.
Ennio Morricone's phenomenal
Oh
score that
yeah.
I elevates the entire
Yeah.
film. And without Ennio Morricone's score, I genuinely don't think this would have been as highly as like regarded as it has been as a
Yeah.
classic. Um, like I said, the technical aspects of this film drew me in. I was intrigued with every single composition within the frame. The depth of field is incredible in certain scenes. And every single plane has something going on. It just creates such depth that we don't see anymore.
Hmm.
And there's different layers to this. So I think that the story needed work. I think it needed tightening up in that case, but when it comes to like action scenes, I thought the editing was great.
Yeah.
Like obviously like the extreme close-ups, I was such a fan of, and he would just like leave the camera there for like a long take, as you had mentioned, and you just have these characters and their emotions and their reactions just so vivid, like in your face that I loved all of that stuff. Um,
Hmm.
but it was hard to get into,
Yeah. I
unfortunately. But
mean,
I was more amazed by all that, like I listed.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
my big question is, who is the good in the good, bad, and the ugly? They are
Because
all three are really ruthless and really bad. Like,
I think it comes with like good intentions, and that's why it's Clint Eastwood. Like I get it, where like one's more brutal and one's more like I'm just gonna, just do whatever I want, and like the ugly, like I get all of that, but I do think that it's like good intentions was Clint
because
Eastwood.
I mean, it's basically you got these three characters. You have Angel Eyes, you have Tuco, and you have Blondie. And those are the nicknames they give each other. And Blondie, he turns Tuco in at the beginning for $2,000 bounty. And then Tuco is going to be hung, and Blondie saves him from being hung. And so then they end up kind of going together, and they're both kind of terrorizing each other. The Tuco makes Blondie go through the desert, and you see like they did some amazing makeup in that, and there was some
Oh,
good acting
good.
there too, because like just how raw his skin looked, and
Hmm.
I mean this looked like a movie that was a nightmare to make.
Yeah, you could get that sense for sure. Like, oh my God, there's so many things that they had to like do, and like they were in the like out in the sun for majority of it. So it's like grueling long hours trying to get those scenes to play out the way that they needed to as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I can just imagine shooting this.
Yeah. Well, so on Wikipedia, it does say that Clint Eastwood is the good, which I don't
Yeah.
really understand. Like, I mean,
I
I guess he does save Tuco twice from the noose,
he
but the
doesn't,
only reason he's in the
yeah.
noose is because of him, both times.
See, I think it's more of like he wants to teach people to do good at the same time because he also doesn't kill anybody. Like I don't feel like he takes these shots. You know what I mean? Like even like at the end in the final draw, he doesn't necessarily like shoot him in the heart or like shoot him in the head. Like he kind of like grazes him too. You know what I mean? Like there's different shots that
Yeah,
he
he kills,
does.
doesn't he kill Angel Eyes?
Does he kill Angel?
The
It's like, but it's still
Yeah,
not like
Angel Eyes
brutal.
draws first and Blondie kills him. So, but it's in like a duel.
Yeah, so I also feel like it's in the rules of the game, but it's also not
Mhm.
like a brutal death. Do you get what I'm saying? Where like
Yeah.
even he's not even like he shoots the hat off of everybody in that time to save it was like Tuco his name.
Mhm.
So he saves him there. So it's not like he's killing people like as long as it's in the rights
Yeah.
of the duel. So I didn't think it was like brutal compared to like what else we saw. Like for the bad, like
Yeah.
Angel Eyes was like brutal killing
He
people. You
was
know what I mean?
brutal. So
So
he's
I think
definitely
that's
the bad, and poor Eli Wallach as Tuco is the ugly. Poor guy.
poor guy.
Yeah.
Poor guy. He was great though. I was like, I want more of him. He was a lot of fun to watch. So it was interesting to see the character dynamics for sure.
But they were all pretty selfish, pretty ruthless. This was not like a kind of a John Wayne Western with like a hero, riding in
Yeah.
saving the people. Like nobody really gets rescued here.
No,
There's no sense of like gallantry or anything like that.
no. It's
None.
like pure, let's go steal some
Yeah.
stuff and see if
Yeah.
we can outdo the other. So
Yeah. It
it
kind of reminded
works.
me of what's that one with the Sierra Madre.
I was just about to say it. Yeah.
Treasure of the Sierra
Yeah.
Madre. It kind of reminded me of that because in Treasure of the Sierra Madre, like basically everybody is like really selfish. And he starts out thinking like he's not going to turn that way and then
Mm,
just like becomes more and more and more obsessed like as the movie goes on.
yeah.
And the guy who's with him can like he predicts it's going to happen and then it does happen
Hmm.
and so yeah, that I feel like has somewhat similar notes. And I think that if you like these kind of gritty westerns, I
Yeah.
think that you'll like this. I mean, I think it is well done,
Yeah.
but I could have used like a little bit more humanity.
Yeah. I feel like it was hard to even connect with the characters. They're just like they're two-dimensional, you know what I mean? And it's just
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't connect with what they were obviously you can't connect with what they were doing, but even with the good, as we've been saying with Blondie, like you didn't I didn't care for the characters in all honesty. I think that's why it was so hard for me to like stay
Mm-hmm.
engaged with them for that reason. It's like you don't have a favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Even
would
if
have
you
really
had a
liked if
yeah.
there'd been like a John Wayne type character, that was your hero. And maybe that's just because, like I'm a Hallmark person.
Yeah.
I prefer stories with some kind of redemption arc, some kind of hero arc.
Hmm.
And I would have liked that a little. I think I would have liked it a little bit better.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you start out with this brutal scene with Angel Eyes killing this guy. Jackson is his name. And then he also kills his son, which was brutal. His son just
Yeah.
comes downstairs. That's all it is. Because they're trying to find out where this guy Carson went with it was like what is it, Confederate gold? It's Civil
Yeah.
War.
Hmm.
That yeah, Confederate gold. And he has it and built this Bill Carson, and so he tries to get information from this guy, and then he reaches for his gun. Before he gets to his gun, then he's shot, and then also he shoots this guy's son, and then the wife comes in and of course is devastated, and so
Hmm.
then there's just the younger son which doesn't die. But still that was very, very brutal.
Oh, definitely, especially for the time that this was released.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's why people are like, oh, it's breaking barriers, it's ballsy, it's a
Yeah.
classic for that reason. And I kind of like that about the film as well, is that it held no punches and
Yeah.
it did a lot of things differently that you probably wouldn't even see um in like today in action films either. I like subverted expectations, and I think that that's why even like the ending for me, I loved it so much. And like I could have had them sit there like staring at each other like that in the final duel even longer than it
Mm.
had played out, and even like with the noose and all of that and him running through the graveyard with all the tombstones because they had to find the bat, like it was just such a great ending.
Mhm.
Because you don't know, the whole point is like you don't know who to trust. There's
Yeah.
going to be betrayal, and I think that that's what they nailed thematically, and I think that that's why people highly regard the film for it
Mhm.
breaking those barriers for the time it came out.
Yeah. And I think that people get tired maybe of the hero narrative, that they want something
Yeah.
that's just kind of cynical, and there isn't a lot of hope, in it, and
Yeah.
that does have a certain degree of appeal. I mean, it said that the film is known for Leone's use of long shots and close-up cinematography, as well as his distinctive use of violence, tension, and highly stylized gunfights.
Yeah.
And you can definitely see how his style was then very influential on
Oh,
people, even
yeah.
like on Clint Eastwood, Unforgiven, in Tarantino and Scorsese, and
Mhm.
these kinds of directors.
Yeah, you could definitely see what they were inspired by it for that reason. And again, like that's why it made an impact. And you have to, unfortunately, like for me, like I don't like Westerns that much. So like I really do want to watch more of his films. And I think that this was like a good way to dive into it and see what,
Yeah.
other filmmakers have pulled from his work. And
I mean, that's
yeah,
what I like about doing the Blind Spot project, is because,
definitely.
it forces you to like watch stuff that maybe is a little out of your comfort zone, is a little, different.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why it's fun.
Embark on a delightful journey with the Romance of Rings series by award-winning author Esther Hatch. Discover a world where sweet historical romance meets laugh-out-loud comedy. The first book, Manor for Sale, Baron Included, is free on Kindle from April 25th to 29th. Grab it so you can enjoy Lord Farnsworth's bumbling attempts at wooing the wealthy new owner of his mother's estate. Don't miss the newest release in the series, There Goes the Groom, which is already being hailed as a new favorite Esther Hatch novel. Find out more on this and all of Esther's books at estherhatch.com. That's ESTHERHATCH.com, or use the affiliate link below.
I definitely would say I think A Fistful of Dollars is definitely the better film. It has the
I
more
can't
iconic
wait.
lines. It's just more memorable,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's definitely better. But yeah, for a long portion of the movie is just between Blondie and Tuco,
Hmm.
and you see them in the desert, and they're just like brutal with each other.
It's
No
bad.
humanity.
No, no, it's bad. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
so bad. I just couldn't believe it. Again, like for when it
Mm-hmm.
came out, I was just like, wow. I was stunned half the time watching this
Yeah.
film. I was stunned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so then and like I said, this Angel Eyes, I mean, he's definitely the bad. He is brutal. I mean, there is nothing. And, kind of, you could see how it would be influential on like the Coen brothers,
Hmm.
No Country for Old Men,
Yeah. Unhinged.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You get a lot
Because
of those characters.
this woman comes in for Bill Carson, and he just beats her without even like a thought. He doesn't care.
Rachel, I was sitting there. I swear to God, I was like, how is this even still going? Like, he slapped
It
her.
was
I
long.
counted. I'm like, he slapped her like 10 times and
Yeah.
like they kept going. I was like, what? I'm like, I understand that you want to show that this man is like the bad, he's brutal, but I'm like,
Yeah.
you could have just let's stop on the violence against women just a little bit because that was a bit much for
Yeah.
me. I
It
was like,
was.
oh, okay. Like for
Yeah, I
what?
agree. It
I
was.
get it.
I mean, if they were trying to make this guy Angel Eyes a total monster, they succeeded.
Oh, totally. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, again, like that's the job. And I think going back to what you said, like there's not an ounce of humanity or like like a redemption arc. There didn't need to be for any of the characters. I think like
Yeah.
it's just showing you the brutality of it all, of
Hmm.
like the West and like what was happening at that given time for that period. And I think that they nailed it that way. Because I think that you watch Sergio Leone movies because of that. And then you watch John Wayne movies for a different reason as well, like you had said. So it's a very stark difference between the two of them, even though they still have
Yeah.
similar conventions. Um, but yeah,
Well,
it's
a lot
really
of times they have a child character in a movie like this, because
Mhm,
that helps give the character some humanity.
mhm.
Like in There Will Be Blood, for instance.
Yeah.
So he's a completely selfish, horrible person, and a madman. But he's got this child, which in a way like makes him this boy, in a way makes him more inhumane because he's what he's doing with his child. But on the other hand, it gives like a few moments of like more humanity. And so I think that helps sometimes with these type of narratives. And it can just be hard for 3 hours to just be spending time with people that are just so horrible.
They're horrible, but I also think it's what they're doing because like the whole second, I'd say the third act, it gets really dense.
Yeah.
When they go into the war and they stray so far from like the bounty aspect that they lost me entirely in that third act, only to circle back and have one of like the best endings that I'd seen. So it's just interesting that I even find that Tarantino does this, is that he has such strong first and second acts in his films. And then the third act is completely out of left field, pivots, and then he doesn't know how really to end the film sometimes, i.e. Pulp Fiction, which is like one, everyone loves it, and I just dislike it. I think it's down at the bottom.
I didn't know this. You're a fellow Pulp Fiction denier.
Oh my God. No way, you too. Oh my God, I love this. Thank God. It feels so good to find somebody that just doesn't vibe with it, man. Like, oh my God. Like I just the whole Bruce Willis arc, I'm not gonna go into Tarantino, but anyways, like that's the thing with me. Like it's hard to have a film that's 3 hours and then just have something pivot so hard in the third act that it loses you.
Yeah. And I just think like you do need I think that if Tuco had been maybe was the character that needed a little more humanity, because he's obviously supposed to be sort of the comic relief, but I don't think that really landed. And so if he had been more like we'd been kind of rooting for him and then I think that would have helped. But
that's the thing. It's like we didn't have anyone to root for, which is crazy because you kind of want to root for Clint Eastwood, like Blondie as the character, but you also can't at the same time. So it's really interesting that you said that because you would want that in any type of film. But yeah, it was.
Well, yeah, and Tuco makes Blondie force march through the desert, and so you don't really feel like you feel like he's also pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So even though he has this kind of silly side to him.
Yeah.
And you do have that standoff. I think there was a pretty good line when he says, "When you have to shoot, don't talk." That was a pretty good line.
It's a good one. It is good. Delivery was top notch. That was good. I have to admit.
Yeah, that was good. And then when Tuco and Blondie are up against 5 men in that shootout, I thought that was pretty good.
That was cool. Yeah.
That was pretty good.
That was really cool.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
And so then Blondie kills Angel Eyes. And then it says that when they find the cemetery, and I think it's Carson, I think. He says, "Shoot me, you won't see a cent of that money. There's nothing in there." It's like, oh.
Yeah, that was honest to God. If that's the way, like, if they found no money, I would have been like, dude, I watched this for 3 hours. Like, no money. I would have been like, I sat there. I was like, are you joking? Please say psych. Please say psych. It's not going to at that point. So,
yeah. And he says that there's 2 kinds of people, those with loaded guns and those who dig.
See, these lines are great.
thought that was a
I-
pretty good
Yeah, these
line.
lines are great. I think that you need to have those standouts, especially in a Western like that. And I think a lot of Westerns have pretty like classic one-liners that people remember. So I like that about it too.
Yeah. And then we have they finally get to where the money is. And this is when he makes Tuco put the head in the noose.
So funny.
Blondie does.
Oh, so funny. I was dying. I was like, this is
Yeah,
great.
and he's like standing on this branch and everything's just very precarious. And he leaves there's 8 bags of gold. He leaves him there with 4 bags, but of course he's, on the noose. And
Yeah.
and that's when he says, "You're a dirty SOB."
I was laughing so hard because I'm like, this guy is either gonna die trying to get the money, and like that's obviously what the entire film is about. So to have him in like that kind of predicament was interesting with the noose. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is that Sergio Leone, he says the 3 main characters all contain autobiographical elements of Leone. He said that there's no spirit. He's a professional in the banalist sense of the term, like a robot. This isn't the case with the other 2. On the methodical side and careful side of the character, I'd be nearer if nearer to Blondie. But my most profound sympathy always goes towards the Tuco side. He can be touching with all that tenderness and all that wounded humanity, which I think is interesting.
That is interesting. I didn't know that either. That's a really cool fun fact. I didn't know that. Wow. No, Tuco, it's true. Out of all of them, like you kind of lean towards him more.
Yeah, and they say here that I guess the cemetery buried gold by the protagonist may have been inspired by rumors surrounding the anti-communist Gladio terrorists in Italy who hid many of their 138 weapons caches in cemeteries, which I think is interesting.
They would.
Yeah.
I'm like, that makes complete sense for them. Yeah, I get it.
And it sounds like Leone actually wrote like quite a bit of this. He said that when he got the script back, he says that I couldn't use a single thing they'd written. It was the grossest deception of my life. There was nothing of them in the final script. They only wrote the first part, just 1 line. So really, it's just him. It's just him.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for him at the same time. He's like, I didn't like this. Let's rewrite on the fly and see what happens.
And it was all shot in Italy in 1966. And
love it.
Yeah. It says here that the top Italian cinematographer Tonino Deli Colli was brought in to shoot the film and was prompted by Leone to pay more attention to light than in the previous 2 films. And then, of course, you have Ennio Morricone composed the score again. And it says Leone was instrumental in asking Morricone to compose a track for the final Mexican standoff, which is really iconic. Maybe one of the most iconic pieces of movie score ever.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Like I got chills watching it because I have like a movie score playlist that I do and like I put on when I write. And I put a lot of like Morricone's like work on there because I just love it. But then to watch it in context, I was like,
yeah.
Like, oh my God.
He says that he asked him to compose what felt like the corpses were laughing from inside their tombs, and asked Deli Colli to create a hypnotic whirling effect interspersed with dramatic extreme close-ups to give the audience the impression of a visual ballet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's crazy. To even have like that description and then you're trying to visualize it and them to act, like to have it done the way that they did, like that makes complete sense with that explanation. That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I guess it was an interesting thing for Eastwood because in this one he wasn't by himself. In the other 2 he was by himself as Blondie. Okay. And he says that Eastwood was not initially pleased with the script and was concerned he might be upstaged by Wallach.
I mean,
in the first film I was alone, he told Leone. In the second we were 2. Here we are 3. If it goes on this way, in the next one I'll be starring with the American Cavalry.
he's so extra. Oh my God. Come on. Oh, Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because then basically it's interesting because Eastwood kind of then proceeded to kind of cap off his these franchises. So he's got the spaghetti westerns, and then he makes Unforgiven. And then he's got the crime movies, like Dirty Harry movies, and then he makes Gran Torino. And so, you know, which is kind of an older version of that character. And so yeah, it's kind of fascinating, his career. And he hasn't had a hit for a while, deservedly so. But there was a while where he was making really interesting choices.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not really a massive fan of his. I never understood it. This is literally, when I say that this is my first Eastwood movie, this is my first Eastwood movie. Like, I have not watched anything else that he's done. Like, this is the first time that I've watched him, and it's not promising for me to continue.
So you haven't seen Gran Torino or Unforgiven or anything? Okay.
Nothing.
Okay.
I bought
$1 Million Baby.
I've watched $1 Million Baby, but like I wouldn't say like I remember watching it because I was very young when I watched it. So technically I've been doing that thing where like it's technically like my first watch of certain, like I did that with Gladiator. I like, you know, it's just something that I've been trying to be really conscious of. But yeah, this is, I would say,
I mean, and I wouldn't say he's like the greatest actor in the world. I think when he's on, I think he's probably a better director than he is an actor. But he I mean, he let's see here, he won for Best Director and Best Picture for Unforgiven, and $1 Million Baby also won. But yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of like, he's your serviceable leading man kind of a thing. Like, he's fine. But lately he just hasn't been very good at directing. I mean, at least I didn't like his Jersey Boys, was not good. There's
I didn't even watch it.
Yeah, it's bad.
Because I love the musical so much that I'm like, just watching the trailer, I was like, it looks nothing like I would have envisioned a movie musical version of it.
I appreciate they wanted to have the original cast from the Broadway, but it just almost never works because the lag time is so great between almost any musical and then when the movie is made that it just doesn't work. You need like fresher, you know, voices, fresher. And I mean, especially Rent, that was a disaster. It was, you know, I get it. I get wanting to use the original cast. I get it, but it just doesn't work. They're supposed to be, you know, teens.
Yeah, I know. I feel that.
But I do think that that you should watch The Bridges of Madison County. That is a very swoony movie.
It is a
very sexy movie. That. It's very good. Meryl Streep is great in it. It's just
I want to watch it.
Yeah, that. I mean, his acting's fine, but like, it's just
we're there for Meryl, okay? Like, we're there for her.
I highly recommend.
It's been on my watch list for years, and I do have to watch it. I do.
But I think with this, like, it's just good to kind of check it off the list. That's just one of those movies that you know you kind of need to see eventually as a film fan. And I'll never watch it again, but we get it. Check.
Yeah. Woohoo! Success. Yeah.
So let us know what you think of the Sergio Leone movies and what you think of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And Manda, where can people find you?
Yeah, you guys can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can check out my website, candidxcinema.com, and my YouTube, Candid Cinema.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. You can read my written review that I'm going to be writing tonight on The Good, Bad, and the Ugly for The Blind Spot. So check that out. And also make sure you check out the Hallmarkies podcast. Lots of good stuff going on over there. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. And have the Patreon group and merch store. Check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.